Before we get into today's build, we need to talk about the layout of our world. I'm standing in our hub, which is how we reach all the different areas in our world, and over here to my right is a portal that leads to what is basically the center of our world. That's the first structure that I ever made in this world. It's the mob factory, where the mob sorting system is, and the creeper farm and chicken farm that were in my earliest videos on this channel. And then once you're here in this nether hub, all of these buttons around me take us to the outer stretches of our world. And to illustrate that, we're going to switch to a map. And I'm going to do my best to crop this in. It's probably going to look cheesy. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet. But this is obviously not an in-game map. I'm looking at this through MCA selector. But this is our world, and dead center, aha, right there. So that red circle is where we are right now. That's the hub. You know, we're in the end, obviously, but if we were to go through the portal to my right, that would take us to the mob factory, which is right there, dead center in the world. And my hope for this world was that we would get around using ender pearl stasis chambers, which are limited by chunk load distance. So basically, we've got our center here, and if we use traditional ender pearl stasis chambers, this roughly is how far we can travel. 200 blocks, basically. We have our render distance set to 13 chunks, but using the system that's behind me, which allows us to use ender pearl stasis chambers in the nether, we can go 8 times farther. So that means 1,664 blocks, which is roughly that. That's roughly 1,600 blocks. That allows us to put pretty much every farm that is dependent on a specific landmark within one teleport jump of our main hub. So like right here are ocean monuments. So we're one jump away from whichever one of those we choose. We haven't built one yet. So just to demonstrate that, we will travel to the end hub, which again was 1,600 blocks northwest of our base. I just click this button. And bam, we are 1,600 blocks. Well, we went 200 blocks in the nether, but if we go through this portal, we will have traveled 1,600 blocks without the use of chunk loaders. And now we are at our stronghold. The end portal is up above us in the ceiling, and we just press our button here and we're transported to the end. Okay, so this is where we left off in the last video. We're at our Enderman farm, and now you know what you need to know to understand what we're doing next, which is that guy over there was our default end gateway. That was the first one that spawned the first time we killed the Ender Dragon. And that guy is way too far away. We just talked about it. The whole point of this world is that we don't do a lot of walking. Everything needs to be as short a trip as it can possibly be. So the first thing we can do to get this thing closer is just kill the Ender Dragon a whole bunch of times until we have closer ones. So that's what I've done here off screen, is we killed the Ender Dragon a bunch of times until finally we have end gateways right here next to our hub. And this is as close as they'll get. So we've got one on either side, and then there, if I killed the dragon some more, another one would appear right here. But that one is not useful to us because there's not a good way to access it. So now what we're going to work on is how do we get up to those things? I've got an idea for something that should allow us to walk over to somewhere somewhat near the end gateway, and then just look straight up and fire off an ender pearl, and have that ender pearl be routed over to the end gateway, and then, you know, we teleport through it. I have no idea whether this is going to work, so if you're watching this video, it either worked or something worth watching came out of it. But here we go. I guess we'll start with a crash course on the mechanics of how this thing works, because the way this thing works is going to put some constraints on what we can get away with here. And the first of those constraints is that when you travel through this thing, we all know how it works. You toss an ender pearl in there and you get sent over to the end, to the outer end. But the reason we appeared there is that the end gateway puts you on the highest up solid block within 5 blocks in all directions of the end gateway. So if we just put... let's grab some endstone here, and we build up like this, and then we go back through here. First off, we're going to appear on top of it, because on this side, the nearest block within 5 blocks is the gateway itself. When we go back, we're going to appear on that pillar we built. Right there. So that's the first mechanic that we need to be aware of. There can't be any solid blocks below whatever we build, and whatever we build around this thing to get the to get the ender pearl up to it, any redstone that we use has to be done on non-solid blocks, which is no small feat. You can see here in my hotbar, I've already figured out what blocks we're going to need to use. Anything we want redstone for example, like putting torches or redstone, has to be not solid, or we're going to appear on top of it. So soul sand is one block that we're going to take advantage of. It's not a full block, it's 1 pixel shy of being a full block, and you can still put a torch on it, and it can even be used for torch towers. So that's a good contender. You put redstone on it, and then we've also got slabs, obviously. Top and bottom slabs will both work. Neither is a full block, so you won't appear on top of either of those. Stairs and not pistons, unfortunately. And we do need a piston to be somewhat close to this thing, so because a piston is what's going to launch our ender pearl in here. So the piston's going to have to be back a ways so that it's not within the 5x5, and then we're going to use these other tricks here to get the rest of the redstone up to this thing. So with that, let's take a look at the mock-up I've built here. That's our our fake gateway. And the hope is, if I load this guy up with an ender pearl, so we would be down here, and we're going to tackle this part next, but we would throw an ender pearl up, and it'll need to be pushed into this water stream somehow, and then timed so that as soon as it gets up to the top here, this guy goes off and launches it into that gateway. And I've already messed around with this a lot to get the spacing right, so you can see we have no solid blocks, so when we come through this thing, we're not going to land on any of these blocks, we're going to land down here where we want to land. And but this piston is further than 5 blocks out, so that slime block, oh, even that actually, the slime block is a full block as well, so that needed to be 5 blocks out as well. And I had to add this water stream here because we weren't getting the right accuracy. The pearl, it bobs up and down a little, so when we launch, it has kind of an error margin. It'll be a little high or a little low, depending. And we need to put that error margin just so that at its lowest point, it still goes in, and at its highest point, it still goes in. And the only way to do that was to add a bubble column here that causes the pearl to be launched up just a little bit after it comes out. And after extensive testing, this seems to, I mean, we're not going to go through right now because that's a fake gateway, but this seems to do the trick. We actually appeared inside the block there. That seems to do the trick. That's as accurate as we need it to be. I did find, this is a little weird, I found that the pearl was occasionally glitching through the gateway, and then we would appear over there. And that, I think, is the same bug that broke our frameless end portal. So to get around that, I've just stuck a soul sand behind the gateway, and then if the pearl does glitch through the end gateway, it'll still hit that block, and then it kind of like self-corrects itself and we go through. So next thing is we want to be down here, right? The gateway is well above us, so we need to be able to throw a pearl straight up and have that pearl get pushed over to the right 2 blocks actually, but we've actually already figured that out. We had to figure that out for the frameless end portal. If we come over here, the ender pearl, when it comes through the end gateway, it goes through this tripwire and gets pushed over into this water stream, and then that takes it up here and carried off. And watch the video to understand how that works. But we've already got that figured out. It's pretty easy to do. So what I'm going to do is toss that together, and then I will be right back. Okay, so I think I've got a finished product here. I did a bunch of testing on it. It seems to be working. And I'll walk you through some of the issues that I ran into while building this. The first being that pistons cannot be within 5 blocks of this. So pushing the pearl over was not an option because a piston would have needed to go right here, and that's within 5 blocks. So we ended up pulling blocks and then using honey to connect the piston out to the stairs that we're using to push the pearl over. So if we look down here, we stand on this platform, we throw the pearl up, it hits this tripwire. That tripwire activates these pullers, and they're timed just right so that the pearl passes up here, and then right here gets yoinked up to here, and then it goes up a little bit further and then gets yoinked to here, then it goes up to this slime block and then gets launched into the gateway. And the reason we're using honey and not slime is that honey is not a full block. So you can see we're within 5 blocks of the gateway, and so if we came through, if that was slime, we would appear right here instead of down here. And down here is the only full block in this entire system that is within 5 blocks of the gateway. So let's take it for a test drive, stand underneath it, throw the pearl, and bam. Here we are. And then going back through, we shouldn't appear on any of the machinery. We should just appear right underneath it. Bam. Okay. So now we need to decorate this thing. We want a room to go around us, and that is going to be a real challenge. We're going to have a severely limited block palette, I think, and I want this thing to look nice. We want it to match the aesthetic we have going on in here, but we can't use these pillars because these are full blocks, and we would just appear on top of one. We can't use these, but we can use stairs, upside down slabs, we can use glass. There's a number of things that we can use. We can't use these terracotta, obviously. There's a bunch of different things we can use. So I'm going to play around with some ideas, and then we will take a look at the progress. Alright, let's take a look at what I've got so far. I didn't record any of the building part of this because it was pretty dry. But we do have the same aesthetic going through here. Our hallways are lined with water to keep up with the idea that the water is somehow warding off Enderman. And then we've got some water in the main room here. And believe it or not, every single block in this room above us and along this wall here are all non-full blocks. And these walls here are out far enough that we can use full-size blocks. So that's why we have shulker boxes here. I don't have any labels on them because I don't even know what we're going to use them for, but it seemed like a good use of the walls. And then here we stand to throw our ender pearl. But I have an idea for how we can dance this up a little bit. Obviously, if we put a pyramid under this, the beacon will turn on, and since there's no full blocks in any of our guts up there, the beacon beam will shine through and it'll look a little bit like a transporter. But I have this idea for, let's pop down here and I'll show you. But here's what I'm thinking. If we head down here and I put the beacon, if I put a beacon right here, let's say, let's see, and I put a piston under it, and then we build our beacon pyramid down here, just like that, and then, oh, okay, there, now it works. But what I'm thinking is, if we put a piston under here, a piston is a full block, so it blocks the beacon, but if we put a pressure plate above it, when we stand on that pressure plate, it's going to open that piston, and an open piston is not a full block. Full block, not a full block. Full block, not a full block. So my thinking is that it would look like, kind of like a teleporter in that respect. So if we close this back up and we walk into the room, there's nothing here. You stand on it and it activates as if it's part of the process. And then we throw our pearl. Get teleported out. And then to return, do the same thing. And we land here back on our pad. Now the question is, will we ever notice that? And what looks cooler? Like, let me throw this on here. Does it look cooler for it to always be on, and we take off this pressure plate? Well, let's go back down there. Does that look cooler? With it always on, and then we have this kind of like beacony looking thing on the ground that looks more like a transporter pad than a pressure plate does? Or does that look cooler, and when you stand on it, the beam turns on, and you can kind of see like the, I don't know if I can show that, but the screen does get a little bit hazier. We could even stain the color of this too. We could put stained glass under there to change the color of it. I kind of like the white better anyway, but are we going to notice that? Like, is it enough of an effect that we want that, or is it better to just have the beam on all the time like that? Oh, and here's the other thing. If the beacons are on all the time, we get a beacon effect. Like, all the time. So if we have it set up with the pressure plate on here and it only turns on when we stand on it, we don't get the beacon effects when we're not using it, whereas if it's left like this, where the beacon is on all the time and you just stand on it and throw your pearl, we could do like the speed effect that I'm using right now to make it faster to run around our base. I don't know, what do you guys think? Do we leave it with the beacons on all the time and we get the beacon effect? Or do we have it only turn on when we stand on the pad like it's a transporter that only goes into effect when we're actively using the pad? I don't know. Let me know in the comments and we'll decide what we're going to do. Speaking of comments, in my last video, a lot of you left guesses as to what these things we're building here could be, and the most common guess was void trading. Now, obviously, void trading is not what we were doing here, but I had to laugh because technically we accidentally made or coincidentally made a void trader. This could be used for void trading. Like if we put a villager right here in like some kind of a, I don't know, or you know, just within reach of this pad, and then you stood here, and then you equipped what you're trading, you threw your pearl, and then clicked on the villager, you would go through and then be able to void trade and then come back and the trades would be reset. So technically we could do that, and I am really tempted to do it because we do have, I mean, this thing is like, it lends so well to that, and there's storage right here that we could keep, you know, melons and whatever we're going to trade with, and emeralds and stuff, and then have the villager right here or something like that. But here's my concern. One of the rules I have for this world is that we not make use of exploits that the devs might one day remove, and that's a pretty serious exploit. I don't think they want you to be able to do that. So I don't know, like I don't use, that's why we don't use TNT dupers or any other kind of duper in this world, is I fully expect that's going to be removed from the game, and it's not works as intended. I want everything to be works as intended so that it's survival friendly and, you know, it's not going to break. We've got enough broken stuff with this stupid frameless end portal being broken. Fix it, Mojang. So yeah, I don't think we're going to use it for void trading. Boy, that's loud. Anyway, yeah, I don't think we're going to use it for void trading, just because it's an exploit that I'm not confident is going to stay in the game very long. And even if it is, it just feels kind of cheaty. It's a little bit too cheaty. I'd rather set up like a more traditional trading hall, which we need to do anyway. So yeah, I think that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments whether you think we should go with the always on type of thing, where the beacon is always on and we get the beacon effect for it, or the version where it's only on when we step on the pad. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked the episode, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.